Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of The Huddle, where we get the chance to connect everyday leaders. They're real people, real stories, real results. I am Brian Nunez, and I am joined by a very, very, very special guest, a best friend, a brother, Casey Miranda. We're excited to have you here today.
Thanks for having me today.
I want to share with our audience just a little bit about you, your background. We've known each other since we were 15 years old, 14 years old, I think, in high school when we met. And Casey has done a multitude of things. He's a pastor. He's a business professional. He's a coach. He's trained student athletes, and he is recently an Ironman. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Father of two beautiful girls and a husband to an amazing wife. This guy truly does it all. He's been a massive inspiration for me my entire life since I've known him. And like I said, you've been more than a friend, more than a brother. You've truly been an inspiration. So I'm excited to have you on the show today, because that's exactly what we're talking about, Case. We're talking about the everyday leaders, people who are just crushing it day in and day out. And you really, to me, epitomize that humble servant leader. Somebody who's, it's not about the attention. It's not about, a lot of followers, the social side. You just grind every single day, and that's what I love about you, and that's what I want to dive in with you today and talk about.
Great.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
But before we do that, I want the audience to get a little bit more connected to you from rapid fire, quick question. That's how we start the show off. Awesome. So the first thing that pops to mind, I just want you to say the first thing that pops up. Sound good?
All right. Sounds
perfect.
Good.
Okay, the first question, and as fast as possible, you're gonna go through this. If you could be an animal, what would it be and why?
A bird, because of the freedom.
Got it. What is the one thing you would put on your bucket list? Just one.
Bucket list. Travel.
Okay, anywhere in particular?
Israel.
Got it. What is your favorite superhero and why?
Favorite superhero would be Superman, just because I grew up kind of idolizing him.
Got it. Other than me, who do you admire the most?
Jesus Christ.
Got it. If a movie was made of your life, what genre would it be, and who would you play? Who would play you? Who would play you?
Comedy, and probably James Franco.
Frank, you know what? You get told you look a lot like James Franco.
I knew this was coming.
So that's perfect. Who's your favorite cartoon character and why?
Woody Woodpecker. I don't know. I just grew up loving Woody Woodpecker. Don't know why.
Okay. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Israel. Yeah.
Okay. What is your dream job?
Dream job, motivational speaker.
Are you a morning or night person?
I am definitely 100% a morning person.
And what is your favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby, surfing.
What is the one thing that annoys you the most?
One thing that annoys me the most is traffic.
Okay, I like it. What is the strangest thing you've ever eaten?
Strangest thing I've ever eaten is guinea pig.
Wow.
Yeah,
You can eat that.
I've eaten guinea pig in Peru.
I did not expect that. What is one of your weird quirks?
One of my weird quirks is that... That's a good question. A quirky thing about me. I'm sometimes overly focused on things.
Got it. Describe yourself in 3 words.
3 words. Confident, focused, and persistent.
If you could trade lives to anyone for a day, who would it be and why?
Brian Nunez.
Oh my gosh, this guy. You lead it today then. What is the first thing you would do when you get up in the morning?
Pray.
What is your favorite movie quote?
Favorite movie quote? There's so many of them.
Nothing from Franco?
They're all probably Dumb and Dumber quotes. I don't know. Probably the Ray Finkel quote from Ace Ventura.
What is it?
What do you know about Ray Finkel?
You can do the whole thing. We'll spare you, but you can do the whole thing. Where's the worst place you could get stuck?
Worst place I could get stuck would be at the DMV.
What would you do with if you had 15 minutes of fame? You were just cast on season 5 of Jersey Shore. They brought you on, right? You're super popular. 15 minutes of fame. What are you gonna do with it?
I would preach the gospel of Jesus Christ.
I love it. When you dance, you look like.
I mean, probably like Usher or something like that.
Okay. If you won the lotto, what over-the-top toy would you buy yourself?
Over-the-top toy. Probably a boat. Probably a boat.
A pontoon boat?
No, probably like a wakeboarding boat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question. What TV show reminds you of your childhood?
TV show. Saved by the Bell. I don't know why. I just love this show.
Classic. Still a classic.
Yeah. I can watch it all day long.
Still a classic. I love it. Good. We got a little bit insight to who Casey is. So, Casey, first off, we're talking a lot about leadership, and you have so many different roles that you've played, that you currently play, that you've played in your life. I want to just start off by talking about where did you get your inspiration to inspire others? Where did you get your inspiration to lead others? Where did that all come from?
Well, I just think like anything, people pave the way for you, whether you see an athlete or you see a pastor. I'm a pastor, so I gain a lot of my inspiration from people who have spilled into my life. Other people like yourself, you've definitely inspired me in the fitness industry to do things that I would probably never have done. Ironman, Spartan races, marathons, go rucks, everything, Tough Mudders. And so I think people, I'm an observer, so I think a lot of the things in my life that have inspired me have come from people doing something and me looking at that and saying, I can do that. And so a lot of coaches have spilled into me. I mean, I've just had a lot of really good leaders in my life that have formed my thought process and my mindset, and good friends, people that I've connected with. I think you say it the best. You say the people that you're connected to help you, or the people that are going to help you grow. And so the more people that I've connected myself with in all different facets of my life, whether it's being a father, whether it's being a pastor, I've connected to people that I know that are good fathers, good pastors, good trainers, good athletes. And that's helped me to kind of elevate my game in those areas.
I love it. Now let's go back, and I want to talk a little bit about, because so much of our story is very similar. We come from a small town. And there's not a lot of exposure there. There's not a lot of things happening. It's really family based, and in this transition from, I always think of us as very similar, that those underdogs.
Mm-hmm.
There's just not a lot of we didn't get a lot of the attention. How much of that really fuels your fire even to this day? Right? We come to San Jose State. Come walk on, earn a scholarship, become captains. I mean, so much of the stories is the same. How much of that is fuel to your fire to succeed?
100%. I think every bit of it. I think when we left Santa Maria and we decided to come to San Jose State, it was a step of faith, but we never looked at it as something that we couldn't do. And I think a part of it is that we never wanted to feel like we never use that as an excuse as to why we couldn't do something. And so 100% being able to look, and the people that even told me you'll never be able to play Division I football, you're too short, you're too small, you're too this, you're too that, you're not fast enough. Those were the things that kind of guided me to go to work harder and to be a better version of who I was. And so I would say without a doubt that is 100% the reason, that the fuel that got me to come up here and to be an athlete and to come live in a bigger town and make impact. And so,
would you say that motivates you even to this day? Is that your type of motivation? The you kind of hope somebody says you can't do it.
Yeah.
Or was it, and is it still? Or so what? What's kind of that fuel for you?
I think when you're younger, you're judged based a lot on your potential and your ability. As I get older, I'm not just judged on potential anymore. It's how they've grown from where they've come from. And as I look back on it, it's a little less about potential and a little bit more about character and about the things that you've built over that time. And so I'm not driven by the same thing as that I was in regards to you can't do this, because I don't feel like I hear it as much as maybe I did when I was younger, and it was more based on who we were physically, or the background that we came from. I think now, being a pastor and a business professional, it's more about, for me, it's more about building character, and am I doing things the right way? And so I think that drives me more, and kind of belief, like what do I believe about myself as a person? And so it's more internal, less external influences. And I'd say that's probably just happened within the last 3 or 4 years, where I feel like it's more about how do I feel about myself and less about what other people are thinking about myself.
Yeah.
About me.
And isn't that, I think that's so spot on, because you kind of get over this hump. And that other hump is when you start just betting on your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have enough momentum to say, okay, you know what, it's not about, no matter what anybody says about me. I know what I'm capable of. I know my strengths, but but that takes a long time. And having that at 20 years old, 18 years old, the influences, and sometimes and a lot of times the influences are from the people in your closest circle that can say, oh, I don't think it can be done. I mean, I remember when I was like some of my best friends in high school, oh, you're not going to be able to play at the next level. I mean, we hear it from people closest to us. So it has a big impact much earlier on, but that has a massive ripple effect later on of the moves you don't make here. What was it for you at that age, just as you kind of were going through it, that really, because I think in the mindset it's still the same way, right? It doesn't matter, just 20 years old. It can be still applied at 20 or 30 or 40. When you're hearing those types of voices, what are some of the ways for that you kept the faith, kept going, kept moving? Like, if you can just kind of go back to because obviously there's times where you're you question yourself. I know I did. Maybe I'm not. I'm not quite sure at times. What are some of the things that helped you keep going?
Yeah. I think when I was younger, I cared a lot about what people thought about me. And so for me, it was someone says something, that's what they think about me. So I need to change who I am so that they can think differently about me. It was maybe a little bit more negatively inspired and motivated, and and I made it a good thing. However, there was still something that was always inside me. It wasn't until I really took the time to really find out who I was as a person and what I believed in and what I stood for in my life. Again, maybe within the last 5-6 years that I've really began to, like you said, bet on your own strengths and see the person that God made me to be and who He's called me to be, instead of trying to compare myself to other people. I think in my 20s that was a really big struggle of mine, is just always trying to compare myself to someone, or how come I don't have this, or how come this isn't going this way, or how come I wasn't given those strengths, instead of looking at what God had blessed me with and the abilities that He'd blessed me with and the personality traits and the things that made me who I was. Someone told me this one time. They said comparison is the enemy of gratefulness. And so I began to realize that not only in my comparison was I making myself more depressed and feeling less about myself, I was also becoming less grateful for what God had given me and my strengths and abilities. And so when I began to realize who I was and who God created me to be, it became such a big driver in how I just approach life, how I approach my family, as a husband, as a father, how I approach ministry, and how I try to influence young men that were when I was their age, the things that I struggled with, the things that image-wise that I struggled with, even though I was a good athlete and had some things going for me, things that I didn't see, and so those are kind of the things that I look back on now and I go, if I could tell someone that my 20-year-old self, if I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self that, I would say, get over that little hump quicker, try to find yourself quicker.
Yeah. And it's kind of two paths, right? And I experienced this for a long time too. It's the focus is value for others as opposed to starting first value to self, which is the most important thing, right? Once like you said, stake in the ground, you know who you are, you know what you stand for, then naturally you'll become even more of a value, to others, not just being it for others, right?
Yeah, correct.
And when do you think that, was it when you had kids? Was it when you got married? When did you start to really okay, I'm switching this mindset, or was it something that you really were just sick and tired of being sick and tired, whether that was mentally or emotionally, and saying this is extremely draining?
Yeah, there was a good year. There was a year, I think I was 31 years old, where I really felt the momentum really shift and change. I had been working on it late in my 20s, and still kind of had these episodes of kind of feeling I'm 29, 30 years old. I didn't have my first kid yet, hadn't purchased my home. I was putting all these pressures on myself of things. And in the process, I didn't realize that God was working on some things in my life, character things and some other things. Until I was about 30, 31, I kind of, I took at the beginning of the year, I always give up something, fast something for the first, 3 to 6 months of the year. And I just felt like like God was calling me to be more faithful in who He created me to be. And when I just felt like that was my best year. It wasn't my most successful year in regards to business. I hadn't had a kid. We hadn't purchased a home yet, but I was just content in who I was. And then the next year we purchased a home. We had our first daughter. And it just kind of seemed like things began to fall in place. And I felt like that sequence was important in my life, because if I would have had kids and bought the home before I realized that, I wouldn't have given the glory of it to God for what He had done in my life and changing not just the circumstance, but the behavior and the mindset behind it. And so I started looking at how mindset and like just process, and how sometimes we want to skip the process so easily. So I'd say probably around 31 years old is when I began to see that shift change. I became a bit more successful businessman. I became a better husband, a little bit more focused on my wife. I work really hard, and sometimes that takes me away from the day-to-day with my wife. And those are things that we'll always have to work on, as just driven people.
Yeah.
But just kind of realizing who I was, instead of being so busy all the time and feeling like the busyness is what made me who I was. I became more focused on what was more important. Yeah.
And that's what I love about, and this is such an important aspect, and this is the nucleus of fulfillment is what you're talking about right here. Your roots control your fruits,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when we want, a lot of times in life, I want this, and we get it. And how many people, I've met a lot of people in my life who have a lot of these things, but they're very unfulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of that process of really stepping back, and the success was, like you said, first it wasn't about, I didn't have the external success right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
That came later. It's just like planting a seed,
Mm-hmm.
right? You plant the seed, you don't have the tree overnight or the fruits overnight, but you have a strong foundation, and that's what I love. So and at the root of that is values, like we talked about. And so how important is that for you, and what are some of your when we're talking about setting up your game plan for success, at the heart of that is values, then vision, then goals,
Mm-hmm.
then balance. I'd love to hear, what are some of your values, like what are the ways that you live your life, things that are most important to you, of saying, this is just the way I operate, this is what I value the most.
For sure. Faith first. Faith has always been something, ever since you've known me. I've always been in Christian faith. So, getting up in the morning, praying, reading my Bible. I do a devotional, or I do this thing we call it at our church. It's called SOAP. It's, you take a scripture, you observe it, you apply it, and then you pray on it. And so doing some journaling and some things like that.
What does that help you do? Is that gets your focus of the day, gets you dialed in?
Yeah, and it helps me get in alignment with what God's calling me to do. It helps me to gain wisdom. There's
Set
a lot
intention.
of stuff. Set intention. Keep consistency. I mean, a lot of things that build confidence. We talk about confidence and lifting, right? It comes with consistency and doing things over and over and over. I think being confident in who we are as a Christian man out in the world and doing things, I think it comes with repetition. And the more I read, the more I pray, the more I'm connected. I feel like that builds my confidence in those areas. And then my family, my wife. So my wife would be next. With my girls, and just trying to there's some areas of my life I'm still working on. I think this is probably one of them. I'm going in a season right now where the focus is all about my wife and my girls right now. But I sometimes get away from that. I work hard, and the next thing I know, I've left deficit and at home. I got to spend more time, got to do certain things. And so those are areas of my life that I'm still working on. But definitely my family. So church would be, faith would be one, family would be second. And I'm really big on relationships. So I value relationships. So not just with God or with my wife, but with other people, reaching out to friends, meeting new people, especially in the church. I meet people every day. I hear different stories, different walks of life, different seasons of life, right? We all walk in. And so I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate a little, I value, I just think I value people a lot. I've realized I really value I just value people, being around people, connecting with people. I found that I really enjoy connecting the dots. Oh, you know someone that knows this, and I know someone who does this, and we should all get to, like, I think that's how God's made me, to be like a networker and a connector. And
for sure, yeah.
so I love that aspect of it. So I'd say my biggest value would be relationships.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I want to talk a little bit about, because you've had so many different demographics of people that you've worked with. Like I said before, from students to your business now, to youth ministry, to coaching clients in the fitness space. Of all these different types of groups, do you have one common approach? What would you say your leadership style is working with groups?
Yeah, I think it's building trust, right? Anything that you do, whether you're a personal trainer, people come in and they're nervous, or they don't know you, and they meet you for the first time, and they want to change their life. They want things to go, and they're not going to just allow you in to all aspects of their life until they trust you. And so as a trainer, I remember coming in and doing the kind of the pre workout kind of meeting with the clients, and would go in and just find out something about them that I could connect with. We may be from two different walks of life. They may be have no sports background, and they may have a completely different career than anything I've ever been in. But how do I connect with you? How do I get that trust, so that now we can begin to work together? And it's no different with students. As I'm a youth pastor, it's no different. These students gotta trust you, right? They come from broken homes. They come from bad relationships. They come from all these different walks of life as well. And so they're coming in here and they're trying to learn about God, essentially, or to become a believer or whatever. And like, they're not going to do that unless they trust the people that they're around, or they look at it and they see that it's good. And it goes for the same thing with that work. When you're meeting clients and you're selling and doing all that stuff, you can have the best product in the world, but if you aren't relatable to them, if you don't care about them, that relationship won't remain. And so the common denominator, I would say, is trust. The people got to trust you as a person. They got to look at you and say, you know what, I want you to build my backyard. I want you to help me with my walk with the Lord. I want you to get me better in the gym.
Yeah.
And it's a common denominator for sure.
Yeah. And what would you say that you do from an action standpoint? I mean, you're somebody who I've obviously known for so many years, and is so consistent, and just in your actions. How big is that for you, right? You got to build trust with people, obviously, and you touch on that, right? The compassion that compares one thing, and it's that whole saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Sure.
And I think that is, that's at the root of that is just leading with care. That your interest is their best interest. But let's talk about, that's one aspect. Talk to me about, how important, you see taking action as a form of living it.
For sure. Yeah, they got to see you. They got to see something special in your life, right? They got to see something that makes them go, wow, I want that. And whether it's, we look at you as, obviously, and we see that you're in the gym all the time, but it's more than just the gym. It's the way you prepare. It's the way you eat. The way you eat, the nutrition you have, all the different things, right? And so we look at that. It's no different for a youth pastor or a coach or a businessman, right? They got to look and they got to see some consistencies in your life. I think consistency is by far, it's something it's been on my heart a lot. I've been teaching a lot about it in church and in different things, because it's the thing that people look at and they go, you know what, I know what I'm getting. I know that I'm not going to be disappointed in this. You know what, I know that that's who he is.
Yeah.
I'm not getting something different, and then I'm not getting him and then getting something different later on. Like, it's going to be consistent. And so I think selling myself as a youth pastor, selling myself as a landscape designer, selling myself as as a coach when I was coaching, right? Coaching here at the gym, coaching football. They got to see that you're living the things out that you're teaching them. They got to see a consistency in the Word of God, and they got to see that you're journaling and that's affecting your life, that it's causing things to happen. I use the training as a good example, a good metaphor, right? If you came in and you didn't look the part, if you didn't if we saw you on Instagram and all you did was, you were negative or any of those things, like people would say, well, that's not who he told me he was going to be. And so I think being consistent, being there, but showing up, just being there for them. I mean, as a youth pastor, I've learned just showing up to a football game or a track event, or someone recently went into the hospital with an appendix. Just being there for them. They just want to know that you care about them.
Yeah.
And I think that consistency is something that's helped me learn that's one of the most important things in any industry.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time with our staff, our team, our athletes. And like you said, consistency is your safest bet, and all consistency is good when you're working with people and trying to lead them. Whether they're consistently on top of it or whether they're consistently not on top of it, at least I think that's the biggest thing.
Sure.
At least what you're going to get from that person.
For sure.
Unpredictability is the biggest liability, what I've always felt, because they can be really good sometimes and they could be off, but that's the toughest part, because it's a liability. You don't know what you may need them in a game time situation, and they're not going to be there. We talk a lot about, and I know, I know you've been through a lot of stuff in your life, as I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, as most people have been through a lot of stuff, and the power of struggle, right? And truly having struggle as your strength. What are some of the things that you've struggled with throughout your life that have motivated you to get to where you are today?
For sure. I think it kind of touches back again on finding yourself, finding who you are, and going through the ups and downs of compromising that. Like you're one way, you feel you want to be that way, but then things along the road discourage you. They'll make you kind of maybe even in some things compromise how you feel or what you're doing. I actually just did a message recently. I was talking about how remembering your victories is such a big deal, right? The things that you've overcome before help you with things that you'll overcome in the future, and
which helps build up confidence.
Builds confidence, yeah, correct. And so I think things that I've gone through. I mean, we had our second daughter, and we went through a really tough time. It was about a week. We thought we might lose her. She was in Lucille Packard. That was a big struggle. That was tough. We really struggled with that. And it wasn't something that ended after the 6 days and we took her home. It was something internally that my wife and our family really struggled with. How much that really impacted us over a 2-3 month period, to where we were still tearing up and still really choked up about it, and didn't realize that was still carrying. We were still carrying kind of some of the struggle with us, and so those struggles, however, brought my wife and I closer together. Some of the things that I've struggled with in business, some of the things I've struggled with in ministry, are the things that have made me better. A better man today. We've talked about this before. Some of the things in business that you've experienced that you really went through have made you a better employer, have made you a better trainer, have made you look at things and situations different. They've humbled you, right? They make you look and go, look, sometimes I'm a confident guy, and sometimes I could be maybe a little overconfident in things, and it kind of brings it back into perspective and lets you know what, hey, you don't got it all figured out. And one of the things I've learned is that being able to admit the things that I'm not good at is a good thing, because I need people to help develop those areas of my life. And so. And
I think that last piece right there is huge, and that's one of the things that I think if there's one. There's so many common denominators, but one that really sticks out that I think that the everyday leader will call out is that, right? Being able to admit that things are not good at, and be able to the ability to ask for help.
Correct.
And that takes a lot of time. Mm-hmm. I mean, it could take a lot of time or take a short time, but everything changes, I think, when that happens.
Yeah.
Because without that, we still have too much ego. Mm-hmm. Right? Too much like, oh no, or too much pride, too much ego, whatever you want to call it. And it could be in relationships with people. Mm-hmm. It could be in just wanting to lose weight. Yeah. Advance in your career. Too many times people try to just, no, I'll figure it out on my own, figure it out on my own. Mm-hmm. And how important is that? How important is asking for help? What piece of the growth pie is that for you?
Yeah, I think it's a big deal. I mean, I have mentors in in ministry that I really lean on. I really look at them and I go, I need these people in my life. There's a lot of stuff that I don't know. The areas of my life in leadership, I can teach young men and women. The areas of struggle, there's certain topics of ministry that I may be able to touch on fairly well. But I need accountability people. I need people that will tell me if I'm doing something incorrectly. Just like a trainer, right? We need somebody. I think even trainers need trainers to be able to get, hey, your form isn't looking right, and to correct those things, but also to ask questions and to say, you know what, I don't know this. I don't know how to fix that. I don't know how to overcome this. I think for me in ministry, that's a big thing because we go through struggles spiritually, we go through struggles physically, mentally, emotionally, and if we can admit to those people that, hey, I'm really struggling with this, then we can get the real help that we need, and we can move forward. A lot of us will carry things internally, and like you said, and try to figure it out, especially if you're a go-getter, right? I'm a go-getter. Sometimes I'm a do it DIY guy, I'll just take care of it myself. And I've learned that takes me down a longer road sometimes than if I were just to have somebody come up and say, you know what, let me help you out with that.
Yeah. So, and that's the difference between having resources and being resourceful. Correct. Right? Reaching out to people and saying, and most people don't, use their resources and are not resourceful. If there's one or two or three common things that you, from working with all types of people, in the workplace, on the youth ministry side, on student athletes, on people trying to get in shape, that this is a problem across the board, whether that's ability to ask for help. What are some of those things that you've noticed that's saying, hey, it doesn't matter what age you are, this is, from what I've seen, because you have such an extensive range of people that you've worked with, this is a universal thing. What are some of the things that you've seen?
First thing that pops in my mind is a lot of people like the idea of the finished product, but they don't like the process to get you to the finished product, right? We all want a beautiful kitchen. We all want, to remodel something, do something, but there's a process that you have to take the old out and bring the new in. A lot of us want, a six-pack abs and a big, or to lose weight or to do this or to train for an Ironman, right? But not a lot of people like to go through the process of getting to those things. In ministry, it's a lot of people want to draw closer to God, but they're not willing to give up the things that maybe are keeping them far away from Him. And so there's that common denominator of we always can see what we want, but we can't always see ourselves going through the process of it. I talk to a lot of people about Ironman, right? Like, how did you do an Ironman? Why would you want to do that? Would you do this? And the one thing I said is I enjoyed the process of it. I enjoyed it, as hard as it was. I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes to go on a 3-hour ride before work because I didn't want to take away from family time. I had to go swim. I had to go do some of these things. There were sacrifices that had to be made, but I was willing to go through the process of it. I knew it was going to be something that was difficult. So I've really been, recently I've really been studying process and how we process things, how we go through, and how important it is to go fully through the process of training or drawing closer to God or whatever it is, whatever industry you're in.
So let me ask you a question. What do you, I'd be interested to know what you think. Do you think it's a matter of people are, not excited enough to embrace the process, or people just don't really want that in the first place?
Yeah. I think it's probably a mixture of both, but I think a lot of times people sometimes we look at the obstacle as like an elephant, right? You've heard the way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, not the whole thing, right? So we see the big obstacle, we see the mountain, right? We see the 140 miles, but it's different when you look at it okay, I'm just going to get through the 2.5 mile swim. Okay, I'm just going to get through the 112 mile bike. Okay, now I'm going to get through and that's how I went through Ironman. So a lot of them, they see the obstacle as the big obstacle instead of small little obstacles in front of them.
For sure.
And that's important in any type of mindset, thought process, right? Breaking it down and saying, okay, I'm not going to try to lose 30 pounds in a week. I'm going to try to lose 3 pounds this week, and then I'm going to try to lose 3 pounds next week, and then I'm going to, and if I hit the scale and I get 4 or 5, then a bonus, and I could pat myself on the back and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's something that I began to slowly, I slowly see the goal at hand, and it creates momentum in our lives, right?
Yeah, it's a think big, act small mentality.
Correct.
And just have those, and I remember the same thing with that Ironman. It was just count every mile on the bike.
Mm-hmm.
Our next one, okay, 18, okay, I got 19, then
Yeah.
20, because, and that's, it just, I think that's where it really sets people up for success. I from what I've seen, just working with, a lot of athletes, that's the important, the quality of your life is the quality of your questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with so many times we say, I want this, but we don't ask enough why do you want it?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that important? Why is that important?
Sure.
Really kind of getting to that root. And, because there's a whole difference between an opportunity and a strategy,
Mm-hmm.
right? As you
Yep.
know, and when you start to get some momentum, you get a lot more opportunities on your plate, but they might
sure.
not be aligned to your strategies.
Sure.
And you got to be able to go through the process. I think there's a process before embracing the process.
Mm-hmm.
Like before I'm going to jump into this process, I got to go through a process, basically like an analysis of, do I really want to do this? Because I'm sure you can attest to this. There's nothing worse than, I want this goal, I start the process, I hate this sucks.
For sure.
I'm probably 90% going to quit because I don't like this process,
That's right.
which then leads to feeling like a failure, which then leads to low self-confidence, which then leads to, somebody feeling inadequate, they can't do things, and you have momentum, but you have momentum shifted in the opposite direction.
Correct.
And so I couldn't agree more with you. I think, and that's where true success, and tell me, your thoughts on this, where I truly feel true success is in enjoying the process 100%.
Yeah, that was the advice, I think, of every single volunteer at the race. Just enjoy the day. Just enjoy the process. Don't look at the time. Don't look at, obviously make your times, but don't focus so much on that. Just enjoy the time. I remember specifically, it was pitch dark. I was on my last lap of the run, last 8.5 mile lap of the run. And I looked over and the moon was on the lake, and it was just an incredible moment because I was sitting there. It was 90 degrees out or 80 degrees out at, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm watching this full moon lit up on the lake, and I was just like, this is what it really is all about, is to be able to just get outside of what you're doing and look at what's good about it. And I think sometimes it's hard to do when we're in the middle of things, when we're in the middle of going through a struggle in our lives. How am I going to look at something that's good, right? How am I going to look at, and if we really do look around a little bit, sometimes we can see that it's really not all that bad.
Yeah.
And
I don't
so
know
that
what it was
helpful.
like for you, but for me, I don't remember crossing the finish line, but I can tell you 50 experiences through that day, through that
Yeah.
race, where it was like, oh, this was cool, this was exciting, but I actually don't remember, really, I vaguely remember crossing it, but it wasn't like it was just kind of like that joy, like you're talking about, that joy of the process.
Yeah.
And I think, it's, we're saying it's just, then life becomes more fun. There's a lot less stress. That there's going to be, it just becomes more exciting. And I think you're able to, to learn and grow from those experiences. Now, we talked about already what you would tell your 20-year-old self. The last thing I want to ask you, Case, and I feel like this could be a series, a season of stuff. We can go we're going back and forth. We talk about, the true, form of leadership is the ability to live free. And for everybody, that's different. Some people that's cars, house, the money. People it's travel. Some people it's just being at peace. When you think about it, if you look at all those 4 points of balance from yourself, your health, your family, and your impact, your community impact, sharing back on the ministry side. If you look at all those aspects and you had to say, sum them all up to what is your, Casey Miranda's, your soul, your legacy, what is your definition of living free?
My definition of living free, I think you said the word, is peace, right? I think peace is connected to contentment. I think peace is connected to joy. I think even peace is connected to some short-term happinesses and some things. And so I've been really I'm getting ready to do a series on there is peace in your pace, right? Like when you pace yourself. We've always lived, go hard and work out hard, and that's your success. And when I prepared for Ironman, one of the things that was really important to me was just my mindset, because I knew that you go to dark places. I know some things that come about. I've talked to a bunch of people about it, and like, you just go to some dark places. I did a half Ironman last year, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was harder than the full Ironman. And I sold my bike on the race. I did all these things in my mind. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not a triathlete, right? Because there was no peace there, right? And I was living my life like I was trying to train for this thing in like 3 months instead of pacing myself over 9 months to a year. And so this race, I felt prepared, not because I was in the physically best shape I've ever been in. I just felt like my mindset and my peace was so much greater. So I would say that in all 4 of those aspects, to live free for me would be peace, right? To have just contentment. It doesn't mean that I don't have issues in my life. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be struggles or those things, but even amidst those things, having just peace, that feeling of, what, God is good to me. What, I got my family around me. I've got great friends. I've got good things going on in my life. So living free for me, and it's a very difficult. I'll be honest, it's a very difficult thing. I struggle with trying to find that inner peace sometimes, and so peace to me would be that living free, like just having that. What, I'm good. Yeah. What, I don't need that. What, as much as it would be great to have this big house or have this nice car or this thing, what, I'm at peace. Like, I have a great family.
I don't appreciate what you have right now. You never appreciate that.
Exactly.
Here.
Exactly.
I want to, when you're listening to this, I want you to write this down, because this is really, what you just said right there, it's relevant for every single person, no matter what aspect in your life. You said peace in your pace. And I think this is so powerful, because have peace in your pace. Sometimes your pace is going to be slower. Right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're going to be at a backwards pace.
Sure.
And you're going to feel like you're climbing uphill, and you just like, I'm not getting any momentum at all. Why is this working? Everyone's out to get me. God doesn't love me. But it's all, have peace in that learning experience. And sometimes you're going to be going really fast. So I think that is like that phrase right there. It doesn't cast any judgment. It doesn't cast any comparison, which is, we're talking about, can really be the anchor to holding people back. So peace and pace, man. I love it, man.
Yeah,
I love it, man. I want to thank you so much,
thanks for having me.
Not just for today, obviously for a chance to connect you to all the everyday leaders that get a chance to watch this, but the inspiration you bring to me and to thousands of other people. I don't want to say you're an unsung hero. You are just a hero every single day. You're my brother. You are my best friend, my brother, and someone I really look to in a massive way. So thank you for making impact, and thank you for being on the show today.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right, brother.
All right.